All right, what's up, you guys? Hope you are having a good week and that you enjoyed the cast the other day that Neff and I did for the Beast Coast versus Keatstar game. So today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I decided that I wanted to make some content around the South American Division 1 teams because I feel like it's good to have a refresher. Maybe you've got some new people that are coming in that just don't know South America at all. Hey, Weidenbaums, thank you for the 30-month subscription. Um, but I just thought it'd be a nice thing to kind of like discuss each of the teams, have people get to know them, and then if you have any other insight that you want to share, this would be a good place to kind of do that. So, hey, Changpo, what's up? This is going to be turned into a full video afterwards. I'm not very good at video editing, but I do want to make these into, things that people can access. Because again, I feel like everybody knows the teams in Western Europe. Everybody knows, the Chinese teams, and some of these other regions maybe not necessarily have as much. I don't want to say popularity, but like people just don't know them quite as well. So, hey, Alchemist. So that's what today's stream's going to be. We're not going to be playing. We're just going to be talking about each of the teams, talking each of the players, talking about like we've got some big news with Evil Geniuses coming into the scene. We've got Alliance who picked up a LATAM scene. So yeah, I think that's going to be pretty cool. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first team up, I'm sure a lot of you guys are already very familiar. I have not gotten my supporters club yet on this, but it's Beast Coast. So Beast Coast, I'm a Beast Coast stan, as many of you already know, have changed their roster. So originally we had Chris Luck and Whisper on the team, but they ended up getting an opportunity to go play on Evil Geniuses, so they had to refill some of these slots here. So what we have now is we have Dark Mago, who's playing in place of Chris Luck, and then you have Sacred, who's taken over the off lane. So I would say that Sacred has some of the biggest shoes to fill because I think Whisper personally is one of the best players in South America. Definitely, I've talked about him for ages now. I believe the first time I really started to notice him was Dream League, my first Dream League ever. Actually, I have a photo of it. It's kind of funny. I have a photo of him as a baby, and I believe, who else is in that photo? Papita's in that photo. He was playing on Infamous at the time, and like I think Moose is in there. Like they all look like little tiny babies because they're so young, except for Papita, because Papita had been in the scene at that point for a while. But yeah, so big shoes to fill for these guys. Sacred, I feel like has really stepped up though. I will absolutely, back him on this. He's definitely shown that he's gotten more stable. If you give him certain heroes, he definitely shines on them. I do not think he's quite as versatile as Whisper yet, but hopefully with the backing and support of Beast Coast and also the fact that he's got all these great teammates around him, that can change. Speaking of people who have very comfortable heroes, Dark Mago is a huge one. We've seen him play a lot of Tiny recently. His Kunkka is legendary. That is like the hero I think I associate him strongest with. And then also the Mars. Like more like the strength-based heroes in the mid lane tends to go for things with the BKB. I think he's a great fit for this team, to be perfectly honest. Hector is the type of carry that just wants to farm. And farm, and farm, and farm, and farm. I know Neff definitely kind of criticized him a little bit for that during our most recent cast, is that, Hector's still kind of playing a little bit like old school. Whereas, like, a lot of other teams, they play a little bit faster. They don't farm as much, because that used to be the thing, right? That used to be, you had your hard carry, and all they did is farm, and they showed up at, like, 40, 45 minutes. They're ready to fight. It's really hard to do that nowadays. But Mago is great. This guy is definitely, he wants to be active. He wants to fight. And I think that lends itself very, very well to Hector. And I also think the fact that he plays like more tanky like mid players, because I feel like Chris Luck, he really shone on like his Templar Assassin, and like more like kind of like the agi heroes sometimes. I know he went through a phase where he played a lot of Rubik mid, and I was like, no, don't play Rubik mid. There's a lot of people that was doing that though at the time, not just him. But I feel like because he's a little bit sturdier and his hero pool makes it a little bit easier, so if he does start to have trouble in the lane, he can kind of bounce back again, or he can make things happen, or he's just not as squishy on his mid hero. So I feel like that lends itself well because now what I'm seeing from the 3 and the 4, honestly, not positions, but the team itself, I'm seeing that Beast Coast is moving more as a cohesive unit. Because I'll say in the past, like a lot of times, we joke, we're like, oh, it's Schofield being Schofield. He's making space. He's like running around the entirety of the map. But a lot of times he's running around the entirety of the map himself to make that space. And that would, over time, lend to feeding. Not that he'd want to, but it just started to get really hairy. But what I'm seeing now, and again, we only saw the first game of DPC, the way that he's moving with Sacred and Stinger and Mago, like these guys, they're making really good moves. Their drafts are very solid because they lend themselves to one another where they can actually get a lot done if they move as a cohesive unit. So I'm seeing like less of kind of Beast Coast players just wandering off by themselves, and I'm seeing them at least in pairs of 2, if not 3 or 4. And I think that's what's making this team look really good right now. Again, a lot of this has to do with patch too, because if like some of Mago's heroes get nerfed, that could end up being an issue. Sacred has, a decent hero pool, but it's a little bit more limited. That can also maybe crop up, make some problems if the patch really shifts and nerfs a lot of the heroes that they enjoy playing and they're very good on. Schofield can play just about anything. Every time I talk to Jenkins, he's like, this guy's a beast. He literally just is like, I'll fill, or he randoms, like, and that's why he's, such a highly skilled and ranked player. Ector, of course, is legendary. He's very good at, coming up with his own builds. And, of course, Stinger, he's very solid, a very good, support to kind of build around. So this squad definitely looking very, very powerful. I will say, though, the big bad evil geniuses are definitely going to be the team to watch. And I'm sure there's a little bit, not like a nasty grudge, but there's going to be a little bit of a grudge, I think, between some of these players and that team. Because this is basically the leftovers of what used to be Thunder, right? So that's enough for Beast Coast for now, though. Let's go back here. So the next team is Thunder Awaken. And this squad, basically brand new. Not brand new players. These players have been around. But Thunder Awaken basically got dismantled to go to Evil Geniuses, and the rest of the team ended up going to Beast Coast. That being said, we've got some really interesting players here. We've got Smiling Knight, who is not from this region, but has made the migration over. You've seen him on multiple other teams throughout the year. I'm trying to remember exactly which one. I saw him very recently, right? He was on Gambit. He was on Empire for a bit. So yeah, this is a guy that's got a lot of experience. And I'm curious to see how he's going to perform with this particular group, because South American Dota is so different. Like the way that they play, the way that they, draft, the choices, the heroes, like it's very different from the rest of the world. And sometimes that's a boon, and sometimes it's a nightmare because they feel, I'm getting ahead of myself here though. Never mind. So yeah, we've got Smiling Knight, or Knight as he's now called here on the official DPC roster. You've got Alone, who's playing mid, and this is a kid I've been watching for a couple years now. I think he stood in as a sub a while back. Was he on Infinity for a bit too? He kind of bounced around a bit. Really young kid. I believe he's 18 years old. And he had a lot of potential. I think, was I casting with Neff? It might have been a BTS Pro Series or something. What up, Neff? Thank you for the sub. Was this with you, Neff, actually? Yeah, so basically we're watching this kid play, and he looks good. Like, he looks really solid. He's playing Storm Spirit, and he is just destroying the map. But the problem is he buys himself a BKB, and he never uses it. Like, he zips for it. He just doesn't use it. He just starts feeding. He just starts dying. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this kid doing? Like, he's doing so well. Like, he felt like he really knew the limits of his hero. He looked really powerful. And then he just wasn't pressing the right buttons or making, like, I don't know. I was talking to a couple people about it, I remember. Because I was like, this kid has so much potential. And they're like, well, that's actually a sign of, not immaturity, but what's the word? inexperienced. Like they need to know when to push their button. Like you can't buy a BKB and hold on to it for that long. And again, I think he was like 15 when I saw him playing, 15 or 16. He was really, really young. This was quite a while ago, but I was like, this is a kid I want to watch. And I think I told Neff about him. I was like, this kid's good. But like, I think he ended up having a couple issues here and there because he was so young that he just wasn't quite as focused as he needed to be. So I'm really happy that he got picked up for Thunder Awaken because I feel like this is, this is a good org. This is the Peruvian org. Has been for the longest time that took the best care of their players. And it's going to give him stability. So I think this will end up being a really positive thing for him to have that backing, to have this team, to be able to grow in this manner where you're in a roster with, some of these other players, especially, Smiling Knight coming in from Eastern Europe, like bringing other experience. I feel like that's so good for some of these players. Excel God has been around forever. Again, one of my favorite supports to watch in the South American region. Michael has also kind of bounced around a little bit. Definitely not a stranger to the support role in South America. I think usually though he's been playing with, I want to say Kotaro half the time. Let me double check here. I believe is he the only... What country is Michael from? I feel like he's the only... No, I'm lying. It's because Michael's Bolivian, Oscar's Bolivian, and so is Whisper. The only one... Okay, so Smiling Knight is from Belarus. So he is the only one there. And, of course, Slating, the only Ecuadorian for, like, ever now. Shout out to Ecuador, man. But, yeah, I feel like Michael... He was on Infamous for quite a while. Okay. Was on Incubus a little bit, Omega, and he was on Infamous Young as like his first real big start. So yeah, lots of experience there. And then Illich, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know a lot about this player. I did do a little bit of research ahead of time. It says that he played for like G Pride, also was known as Little Boy. So he's got a pretty big hero pool, which I think is very useful for Thunder Awaken. I guess he also was playing with 5-man Midas for a little bit. So if you follow the NA DPC scene, you probably saw a little bit about Illich. But for me personally, I don't know that much about him just yet. So I'll be curious to see, how he does. This is kind of an interesting mix of players. I think Alone has a lot of potential. I believe they just won against, it says here, they just won against Ravens. So that's a pretty big deal. So yeah, definitely, this is one of the more popular organizations in South America, but it is a fresh roster. They did bring in someone from Eastern Europe, so a little bit of a question mark, but I'm very excited to see what they can do. Next on the list is Infamous. Infamous used to be the team. Like, even before Thunder started to really gain popularity, Infamous was like the one big name out of South America. And I have to say, I'm really happy to see how everything has changed over time. Just because of the fact that we now have, Thunder's getting known more. Hokuryu was getting known more before it got picked up. We're seeing more of these organizations in South America, and they're producing results, and they're gaining fans. And I think that's super fucking cool. So we have Infamous Gaming. For me, Infamous is Kotaro, which you already see here, but also Papita. Those two guys, like, whenever I think of Infamous, I think of those two. So in the core position, of course, you've got Kotaro, also known as Kotaro Hayama, also known as MNZ, Man of Mystery. He's got a billion names. That's kind of the meme. I think Malistrix made a video a while back talking about the difference between all of his nicknames. Like, there's one Kotaro who's like very mysterious, or like when he's happy he's this guy, when he's sad he's this particular version of himself. Very varied. Alvaro and I love to watch this guy. We think he's very talented, but the problem is he does have a tendency to throw a little bit, despite how much, how skilled he is. Sometimes things kind of slip through his fingers. I'm not sure exactly what goes on there. I'm certainly not brave enough to ask. Maybe Alvaro would be. But he's definitely one of the most solid core players, I would say, in the South American region, despite the fact that he can slip a little bit. Oscar, again, this is the other Bolivian. He is pretty, what's the word? I don't want to say pretty well known, but he's definitely not a stranger. I feel like more and more people are getting to know him because didn't he play on, it was Omega, right? Yeah, he played on Omega. He played on No Pink for a little bit. I'm a fan with this particular player. I think he's got a lot of potential. Right now, I feel like South America has some of the really, really strong off-lane players. Or a lot of them are homegrown in South America. We'll put it that way, right? Because I feel that Whisper, again, one of the best players South America, off-lane player. Lelis or Leslau or whatever you want to call him, off-lane player. Tavo, when his heroes were in the meta, off-lane player. Sacred now, you know, building up steam. It's like, I feel like this region really has great off-lane players and potential, and I feel like Oscar is definitely one of those that is starting to make his way up that ladder, that if he finds the right patch and he finds the right team, he's really gonna shine. So, big fan of Oscar. Sladine, I think it's Sladine. I've asked him like a billion times, is it Sladin? Is it Sladine? Is it... He says, whatever you want, Moxie. Which is how we got into the Costability problem, but that's a whole other story. We'll get there. This guy has been... Oh God, I want to know... Is there a way to find out how many years he's been playing? I feel like I've been casting him forever. Years active as a player since 2016 to present. He played on Mad Kings, which Mad Kings used to be my favorite Peruvian org. They no longer, I think they have a team now, but they're like nowhere near what they used to be. He played on Taurus for a bit, which I think did fairly decently. I'm trying to think if they made it into like the TI quals. G Pride, I feel like a lot of these guys have played on G Pride. Infamous, Tempest. Yeah. This guy, no, like if you know the South American scene, you've seen his name like a billion and one times. Very just, what's the word? A very solid support player. I feel like a lot of rosters get built up around him. He's definitely one of those people that people want to pick up. So, yeah, just a solid addition to this team. Nothing really to say there. MJZ, he is the Kotaro, the MJZ to the MNZ. He is the support player that always follows around Kotaro. They're kind of like bread and butter, peanut butter and jelly if you're American, macaroni and cheese if you're also American. I don't know, what's a European or a like an equivalent? I don't know. I feel like bread and butter is pretty normal, right? Costability is one of the names Americans cannot pronounce. I just need to hear it a couple times. But the problem is I went and I've called him Costabile for so long that my brain like can't flip it on the fly anymore. But that's besides the point. Yeah, so these two guys, they know each other so well. They lane together well. There's no reason to break them apart. And then in the mid lane here, it is SLATAM. I don't know this player. I'm going to be 100% honest. I believe he played on Balrogs. I don't know enough about him to judge. So this guy's a big question mark for me. He must be good because of the fact that, you know, Infamous wouldn't pick him up otherwise. Again, this is an org that has a pretty good reputation in terms of producing results. I'm curious to see how he performs. But I don't know, like, anything about, like, what his favorite heroes are. If you go on to Wikipedia, there's not much about him. He reached 11k MMR on December 19th this year. I like the approximate total winnings are $352. But I'm excited to see. I don't know if you guys have any information about SLATAM. I didn't watch a lot of Balrogs games, unfortunately. So I'd be curious. I'm sure Chompix probably has some info on this guy. But yeah, that's the Infamous roster. So did this shift on me? We did Thunder. Did we skip Infinity? We must have skipped Infinity. Oh, yeah. Okay. So anyways, next team is Infinity. I don't know why it's listed as double. Because it's definitely Parker. But I guess maybe he's rebranding. They do this every once in a while. Yeah, it did shift her off blues, which is kind of weird. Yeah, so Parker. This is funny because they played against ALLIANCE.LATAM last night. And I know the guys were saying, they're like, yeah, Parker is one of those guys that people are saying, like, he's going to be, you know, the next big thing out of South America. I would agree. I would say that for the longest time, right, the top guy was Hector, because Hector was the first, like, big core player to kind of break into the international scene, other than HFN. I guess that's not fair. So HFN, I'd say, started to get everyone's attention. Like, wow, look at this guy. This guy farms like fucking crazy. Like, he's a madman. And then we started to see Hector show up. And Hector, not only could he farm like a madman, but he started pioneering like different builds, like random like little items, like the belt of strength or whatever, early on these heroes to farm faster. And everyone in the international scene started copying him. From Hector, we now have Pakaz, who in my opinion is the top core in North America right now. But he is so goddamn aggressive and fast playing, and it fits the style of Dota so well. And now we've got Parker. And Parker has been slowly climbing up in popularity. But he's definitely a person to keep your eye on, because he does have, like, he's got a little bit more of a balance, I'd say. Like, he's very aggressive, like Pakaz, but he also, like, is very good at farming, depending on what hero you put him on. So, definitely, Infinity still looking strong. I know they changed their roster a little bit from last season. In the mid lane, one of my favorite players. I'm a big Leo style fan because I always thought that he was very skilled. Was not happy about the drama that occurred with his courier. I was very, very disappointed to hear that. And I know a lot of people were like arguing like, oh, you know, here in South America, you know, it's different. You know, we use this. I was very disappointed, to be perfectly honest. Personal feelings aside on all that, I do think he's a good player. I do think that he is not at his prime anymore. And I don't know exactly what happened with that. If it was a situation where, you know, he just wasn't finding the right motivation. If, like, the team composition wasn't as good for him. I don't know. I think that, you know, he has the potential for sure. But I think he's just lost a little bit of his shine. And I hope he finds it back, personally. And then we have the offlaner and the support duo coming in for this team. Trying to make sure they didn't change any names. Yeah, so, like, Jim Park is Frank. I was like, I don't think he's Jim Park. But that is Frank the Tank, formerly of Thunder Awaken. I've always thought he was a very solid offlaner. Known for, like, his centaur, like, kind of the big, beefy boys. He's playing with Parker and Leo style. Like, this core lineup looks strong to me. Is it going to be strong enough to take down some of the big boys? I don't know about that. That one's a little bit more of a question mark. It depends on, you know, the way that they all play together. But looking from a talent standpoint, they look to be, like, very solid and also, like, very middle of the pack. Again, the big boy, the big scary boy right now is Evil Geniuses and Beast Coast. Those are probably my two top currently. But, like, this is a team that, you know, isn't going to just sink to the bottom of the pile, is definitely going to be able to, you know, put up a good fight. Prada has been around for a bit. I don't know Janik. Let's see. What has he played on before? It looks like it's just been Infinity and Gorilla's Pride. I would like to find out more information about that. Yeah, I saw. I was watching that for sure. Parker TA. Yeah, I can't believe they let Parker get TA. Like, that's insane to me. I guess TA is not super popular right now in the meta, but that man is a demon on TA. Oh, I still have co-caster thing. Whoops. I need to fix that on Moobot. Just ignore that for now, guys. And then, of course, yeah, so Genic, I don't have a lot of information on, but Prada has been around. He was on Mad Kings for quite a while. Again, one of those orgs that I used to be a huge fan of. Did bounce around a bit, was on Elite Wolves for a bit, but for the most part, Unknown, Infinity are the two that you might recognize him from. He's a very good player in terms of positioning, if I recall correctly. This is one of those players that like will be in the right place, right time, and also tends to be very self-sacrificing. Not necessarily the position 6 as PPD kind of not champion, but was known for. But he's definitely, you know, one of those players that, you know, will suffer if he needs to let the rest of the team get what they need to do. Maybe sometimes a little bit too much, but... So that's Infinity. So we did Beast Coast, Infinity, Thunder Awaken, Infamous Gaming. Let's go for the big boys here. All right, this team on paper is the goddamn dream team of South America. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I'm a Beast Coast fan because I love what they've been doing in the region. I love that they've supported their boys. I wish Beast Coast had gotten this roster. Like 100%. I really wish they had gotten this roster. But I know that Evil Geniuses, they got those big boy dollars. They got the brand. And you know what? If any group of people got picked up by Evil Geniuses from South America, I'm glad they got this goddamn team. I'm an Evil Geniuses fan now because of this roster, because of these guys. Like, I'm on board. They looked fucking terrifying. During, I believe they were playing Pro Series. Both Neff and I were like, it's probably going to take them some time, you know? We've seen teams, like we saw Elephant, right? Elephant out of China. They were supposed to be like the team. They were like all-stars. They looked so good on paper and they crashed and burned. This team here has been looking solid. Has been not only looking solid, they have been looking like they've been playing for so much longer. So let's go through here, all right? Let's start off with my boy Whisper. Huge Whisper fan here. Like, been talking about this guy since forever, saying, look at this guy's moves. He's playing, you know, back in the day when he first started, it was all about the Tiny, the Leshreck, and the Doom. This guy, you know, Doom didn't look fancy back then. We didn't have all these extra, like, Aghanim Scepters and shit like that. He would make it look so good, though. He would juke in the offlane. He would find his target. He just had this preternatural sense of knowing where people were going. It was amazing. His Leshreck in the offlane. He was, like, the guy that you wanted to watch playing that. His Tiny, insane. Like, I could go on and on and on. Huge Whisper fan here. This guy, again, probably one of the best players in South America. I know who the other best player South America probably is. Pakaz. This guy, amazing. Been talking about him for ages as well. Like, he is one of the most aggressive position ones that I've seen in a long time. Jenkins has this great story, and I'm sure you've heard it at this point, but I'm gonna put it out there anyways. This guy is playing against Jenkins in the offlane, and Jenkins just keeps getting murdered. And he's like, what the hell is this guy's problem? And he's thinking it's the support, right? The support, usually courts, they just want to slay back. They want to hit creeps. And he goes back to watch the video because he's like, it's got to be the support being like, yo, let's go on this. Let's go. It's because ping, 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 ping. Like, let's murder this guy. And like, that story should tell you everything you need to know about Pakaz is that he is hungry. If he sees an opportunity, he's going to get his ass in there and he is just going to destroy. But he also has a very good sense of knowing when do I go in, when do I not. Like, do I have the items I need? Do I have the advantage? Incredible player. Like, these two players on Evil Geniuses, two of the best in South America. 100%. Then we get to Panda, and I'm not going to lie, I'm a huge Panda fan. Part of that is because I did get the chance to talk with him a lot at the Stockholm Major. And that's, like, really cool to see someone who's always willing to do interviews, who's always willing to like talk about his team. He's very positive. This guy is such a kind person, and to me, like, that makes it all the sweeter when you see someone who's good, who's doing well, who's talented, but he's also, you know, humble. He's also very kind. Like, I can't say enough great things about Pandita, honestly. So a little bit of backstory with Panda. I didn't realize this, but we were talking one night and he goes, Moxie, do you know that you cast my game back when I was like 3K? And I was like, oh my God, no, I didn't. And I think it might have been a qualifier or something. It was either a qualifier or like a Pro Dota Cup or I don't know. I don't know exactly, but he's like, yeah, you casted my game back when I was like, you know, a 3K pleb. And I just thought that was like the coolest thing ever to see like how far both of us have gone. Panda also did have a while back, he had an issue where he had an anxiety attack, which is fairly common, honestly, with some of these players. Like to go onto the main stage to have all that pressure on them is incredibly scary. It's incredibly hard. A lot of these guys too, whenever they make any sort of mistake, they get like messages sent to them from like betters who are angry, like, oh my God, I'm going to kill you. And like they threaten their family and like all this really awful stuff. Like it sucks. But this guy has been really strong. And I think that's really incredible. The fact that like, you know, he's not only made it over that hump, but he's also now captaining one of the best teams in South America. He went all the way from like being a 3K pleb and like ground his way up to the top. And I would say like he is probably one of my favorite players because of just how human he is, the talent, and also how kind. So like this guy definitely, you know, it's one of those things where I tell you guys, I don't praise people unless they really deserve it. Like if I say that I'm a fan of this person and like they're a good person, they're a good person. This is one of those guys for sure. Matthew, super famous in South America. He streams a lot. There are all these memes about him. I'm hoping I can get some more translated memes. I'm hoping Evil Geniuses does something with that too for their American audience. If you are an Evil Genius person watching this right now, please, 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 please work with these boys. Bring all of this information up to the English-speaking audience because we want to know. We want to know the memes. Yeah, El Gotito. You know, the doctor. Like, this guy has so many things that you can make content out of for your English speakers who just don't know them yet. Please do something with that. But yeah, Matthew, super famous, does a lot of streaming, great player, definitely plays some of the more interesting, like position fours, which I've always really enjoyed. I believe, what game are we playing? There was one game where, like, I think, was it an IO game or something? But, like, he was struggling really badly. And so, like, he messages into, like, the lobby just saying, like, I'm sorry, guys. Like, just in general. And I'm just like, oh, my God. Like, why is he... why is he saying that? And everyone's like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, even the enemy team, like, everyone was just, like, chill. Which I liked. And then, of course, you've got C-Smile. Mr. Chris Luck himself. This guy... holy shit, the amount of, like, again, the history with this team in particular, is wild. Like, I remember back when he used a different name, I've been asked by other orgs before, like, don't bring that one up. It was Chris, named after a very specific singer that is infamous, unfortunately, for not good things. But yeah, he used to play on G-Pride, and I'd see him consistently on G-Pride, and I'd be like, I don't know about this kid. He seems so unstable. Like, some games he'd be super good, and some games it was just absolute garbage. But then, like, he started working with what eventually became Beast Coast, right? Or known as Beast Coast. I guess technically they started off as, not Pacific. Pacific came later. They did, like, Pacific and Majesty, Hamburguesa, and now they were Beast Coast, whatever. But because he got the chance to work, I think, consistently with the same group of people for so long, he really started to become more and more solid. I do think that as much as I love the former iteration of Beast Coast, I do think that they left him up like high and dry a lot of times. I feel like Hector definitely got the priority to make sure he came online. And then Chris a lot of times just kind of was like, well, you didn't do great in your lane. Schofield, Stinger, they were just like, we're going to go try to make space elsewhere. But we're not really... They couldn't do as much to help him, I felt. I don't know. Something seemed off about that. And again, I don't have, like, the internal comms on this or, you know all the back, what do you call it? Back behind the stage, so to speak, information. But it just felt like something didn't quite click. with some of the other teammates after a certain point. So I am excited that he's on this team. I feel like Panda and Matthew are the types of players that can definitely help assist Chris if he starts to have issues in that mid lane. I also think because Ektor, again, we talked about this earlier, Ektor likes to farm. He likes to just be uninterrupted, hitting creeps. He'll show up occasionally. Because, though, sees an opportunity, he is there. He wants to fight. So I feel like this style of core, position 1, fits so much better with Chris's position 2. And then you've got Whisper, you've got Panda, you've got Matthew. These guys are going to just be moving nonstop. They're going to be, making these opportunities or stacking the jungle or like just, I don't know. Super, super excited for this team. I know I sound like an absolute fucking fangirl, probably because I am, because I think this might be our squad. This could be the team that takes us even further at TI this year. Knock on wood, All right. That being said, I'm going to move on to Vivo Keatstars. This is the only Brazilian squad in the entirety of the upper SA DPC. A lot of familiar faces here. So we've got King RD, who was on Pain Gaming. He's kind of bounced around since then. He was super fun to watch when he was on Pain Gaming. Feels like they kind of haven't... He has kind of lost his flow a little bit. I'm not sure if he just doesn't have the right team composition around him. But, definitely just haven't felt as impressed with him as I used to. It might also be, too, though, that everyone else in the region is starting to move upwards in terms of skill level. And I think he took a little bit of time off for a bit. I think he did some panel work. He wasn't playing professionally. And if you don't play, all the time, at least this is what all the guys tell me, you lose it. It's a skill that you either keep going or you lose it completely. Again, though, really, famous, positive... well, not always positive. There have been some issues, but, known for his big King RD smile, likes to be very active. We'll see how he does here with this particular team in this patch. Costa. So for the longest time, I called him Costabile, because that's how I figured it was pronounced. But apparently with the Brazilian accent and, other stuff, I think it's Costabile. Costabile, something like that. It's more of a Billy. So I'm still trying to figure that out. I asked Neff, because Neff, he used to be on Nouns. Neff was like, I just called him Costa. I don't know. I think Tsunami has the appropriate way of pronouncing it, and I think Ricky does too, under their belts. I'm still struggling with it. I will get it, though, eventually. I have it literally, no joke, literally written on my phone. I've got Costa Billy written here. I'll get it. Again, super Brazilian all-star. He and 4DR, I feel like, are the two, really big core players that I always recognize from Brazil. They just haven't been able to go toe-to-toe as well recently. Just Brazil as a region in general. Used to have a lot of Brazilian teams, and a lot of them just kind of fizzled out, unfortunately. For what I hear, Costa, super nice guy, doesn't want to cause any problems for anyone, just wants to play Dota. I would say he's definitely, impressive as a player. A lot of people know his name. He's kind of shifted around a little bit between North America and South America. If he has the right squad behind him, I think he could do some really great things. But right now, it's looking real fierce, the competition. Tavo, super, again, very popular from the Pain Gaming time. Was known for his Pangolier. Tavalier was the big one. His Sand King, also very, very popular. This is a player that has a lot of skill, but I think a lot of it depends on the patch. I think if he gets lucky, if his heroes are very, meta, I think could absolutely destroy. But I think he tends to struggle a little bit more when he doesn't have those particular heroes being as powerful. Not a bad player by any means. Definitely has a lot of experience. But I do think that he shines more when his hero pool is highlighted. King Jungles, been around forever. Again, just a very solid support player. does what is needed for his team. I feel bad. I feel like I don't have a lot to say about support players a lot of the times, even though I'm a support player. But they're just not as flashy. Like, your job as a support is to help control the tempo of the game early on. And, like, you know, make sure you're stacking, make sure you're warding, make sure you're applying the correct pressure so that way, you know, your position one can get what he needs done. King Jungles does all of these things. He does them quite well. Again, another one of those players that is in good positioning. Generally, he's not, you know, running up a cliffside. Oh, God. Yeah, there are some players that play support that, you know, made the shift from being a core to support, and you're just like, no, don't run up that hill. What are you doing? Yeah, I think that, what is it, SSA Spartan was not a core player, but he tends to run in with his face because he's so excited, so his positioning tends to be very, very off. And Sammy Boy, when he first made the transition to support, would definitely see that guy run in with his face. And you're like, oh no, Sam, back off, back off. King Jungles, though, definitely knows the support role inside and out. Solid addition to any team. Any, honestly. And then, of course, you got 4DR, Adriano. Was very, very popular a few years back as one of the mid players to watch. I feel bad because, like, he looked very, very solid, but it seems like, I don't know, if the skill level has just been raised so much again in the South American region, I don't feel like he's as strong as he used to be. And again, I'm not sure if that has to do with some of the hero pool, the way the meta has shifted. I always thought about 4DR not being the type of mid player that was super tempo, but like he was good on farming mids. And if the opportunity arose, he would be there. But it just feels like have had a little bit of a struggle recently. Definitely best mid player from Brazil, 100%. But he's going to need to really step it up to go toe-to-toe with a lot of these Peruvian young guns. How old is he actually? Because, like, it's funny because in Dota, like, most of these guys aren't very old. But I know he's been playing since 2013, guys. And he's 29. He's not that old. Like, that's not, in the grand human scheme of things, 29 years old is not that old. But for Dota, like, that means he's been around forever. It looks like he started on, back in 2014, Swag and Tiger. Some of these I don't even know what they are. CNB Esports Club, I don't remember that one. That was also 2014. Pain Gaming, though. The first iteration. There's King Owl +4. SG, I remember him and Costa Billy doing SG Esports forever. Then going on to Pain, then No Ping Esports, which did decently. Team Brazil, back to SG, they did Wolf, and now he's on Keat Stars. So again, this team has a lot of experience and I think a lot of talent, but I also feel like they're kind of struggling to keep up with what some of these other teams are going to be bringing to the table. So, you know, if you're a Brazil fan, you want to see them do well, especially because a lot of these guys have been around forever. I just think that they're going to need to really figure out their stride, figure out their team dynamic, to really, you know, start showing up and take down some of these big dogs. A lot of these younger guys, too. All right, so from Vivo Keat Stars, we move on to ALLIANCE.LATAM. So this is a big one here. And it caused a lot of a stir because Alliance was working over in the Western Europe. They have a Western Europe team, but they were struggling. They were not getting the results they needed. They were really trying to build around Nico Baby, and they just were not finding, they weren't finding the success that was necessary. So they decided, this was a big surprise to me, to move over to South America and put some support behind the Division 1 Hokuri. So now, instead of Hokuri, we have ALLIANCE.LATAM. I know some people are upset for multiple reasons about this. Because A, they're like, well, you know, they forced out another, you know, South American org sort of thing by picking them up. Alliance already has a team. They were over in Western Europe. Like, there's been a lot of moving and shaking in the South American region, which is good in some ways because it's more, what's the word? It's more experience moving into the region. It's more money. It's more eyes. The whole, you know, no news or no, any news is good news sort of thing. Like, you know, getting the attention. Although following the South American scene for quite a while. Sometimes that attention even, it's bad. You can't turn it around, unfortunately. But in this case, I'm fine with it as long as Alliance continues to like put their support behind them. It's very similar to Evil Geniuses too. As long as it's not an org that just swoops in and then swoops out. I want to see them help grow the scene. That's one thing that I really love about Beast Coast and why I am a Beast Coast fan, is that Beast Coast went down to the region and they stayed in the region. They're a North American org technically, but they saw an opportunity in South America. They have put their money and their faith behind it. They have created a lot of content to also try to, you know, get these players more attention. I would love to see Alliance do that, and I would really, really love to see Evil Geniuses do that. Like I said, really want to be able to hear more about, you know, all the memes, especially, you know, talking about Matthew, talking about Pacaz, talking about these guys. Like, make the content and help these guys, you know, grow their brand, talk about, like, you know, the scene. That's what I want to see from all of these like orgs that are coming in from other countries. That being said, I mean, it's Okori. Like, these guys, they looked really, really good last year. They made it into TI, partially because of the fact that there were a lot of penalties imposed upon, I think it was Infamous, right? Because of what Leo Style did. I'm gonna double check on that. Yeah. Unfortunately, because of the courier incident, they, on the side of Infamous, were penalized, and then I think another team, what was it, Tempest? I think Tempest ended up having some issues too, right? They lost power and they couldn't get back in. And so I believe that's also another way that Hokure was able to advance. Again, though, they were looking very, very strong. A lot of people said, you know, they were definitely going to put up a good fight. So I'm trying to like double check on this. Yeah, Hokuri. Just double checking my information. Sandlot. I don't know, but yeah, these guys, they're definitely up and coming. Lumiere has become super, super popular. I've been a big fan of Theolacor for a long time. I still go back to the days when I was casting his games. He is also Brazilian, I believe. Because I believe this team is a good mix of, yeah, you've got 2 Brazilians and then 3 Peruvians. But yeah, I used to cast his games. He used to play a real sick Elder Titan. Obviously, Elder Titan not in the meta anymore, much to Fogg's sadness. I know that's his favorite hero. But he was very, very good at doing what he needed, like making these rotations, putting pressure over on the mid lane. The meta's changed a little bit since then, obviously, and there's new heroes that are very, very, you know, popular and are being used more than the ones that he had before. But again, I feel like he's a good support player. A big hindrance for him back in the day too. I don't know if Alliance has prepared them with like a boot camp or something for this, but where he was living, a lot of the times, if there was a lot of heavy rain, he would lose power. He would lose power, or he'd lose internet or something. So I'm very happy that he's got the support behind him, because I think that will help him become an even better player. And I also think that was one of the reasons why some teams were a little hesitant to pick him up, was just because of the housing situation, because of internet and power. So happy to see him doing well and getting these chances. Analog, another Brazilian mid player that he's flipped on and off my radar for a while, because he's definitely, you know, one of the better Brazilian mids, but could be a little bit limited in his hero pool, and also just sometimes was really inconsistent. I'll be curious to see how he does. I feel like this is a good squad, though. Like, we talked about the Beast Coast team, the old Beast Coast, how they were stuck together for so long. This team potentially could be another situation where the longer they stay together, the better they get, and hopefully they, you know, find their stride and don't get picked apart by a bigger org. But I think all of these guys here, you know, Vitali, Gardic too, like, they just seem to play very well together. So I think with more time, more experience, this is going to be a very powerful squad. I just hope Alliance is willing to take the time to allow them to become more and more powerful, and more experienced. That's my hope on this. I feel like that's too. And also, you have to remember, it is the first bit of the DPC. Although I'm sure these teams scrim each other. I'm sure that they're, doing a lot in terms of, studying each other and playing each other in pubs. Like, a lot of these guys have played with one another for a very long time. So, yeah, I agree, Math. I think that this is just a team that needs the experience. Give them more time. And if there's one thing I will say about Alliance is that they definitely give their teams a really fair amount of time to gel, to become what they need to be. We saw it with the former Liquid, Liquid now, but Liquid used to be, the Insania, Taiga, Boxy, all of them squad. They had plenty of time to kind of come together, and then they got poached by Liquid. They got the opportunity, and then, they tried with Nico Baby for so long. So I really do believe Alliance is going to try to hold on to these guys, trying to nurture them. Yeah, I would say that, Loda and Kelly are definitely, for all of their faults, sometimes, they need to walk away from the keyboard, but they do really believe in their players. And I really, really respect that, because I think that you can't have a good relationship with your org if you don't believe in your players. So, fingers crossed on this. I have big hopes for this team. I didn't mean to click that. And then the final team on here, we got the Ravens. And this team is really interesting to me because we have some really old players and some really new players. So, for example, Benhaz has been around forever. Like, in fact, let's go back. I think he was on Mad Kings too at one point. Let's see. All right, so he started back in 2013 as well. Union Gaming. And has had 1,000,000,001 teams since then. He had Mad Kings during the 2018. Well, then he went to G Pride for a bit. I think, no, that was the MNZ org that they had, the Brackstone or whatever. Bentaz, who did he get picked up by? Vicious multiple times. Infinity Ego Boys. I don't know, this guy has been around for 1,000,000,001 years, it feels like. Again, a lot of these teams are very old players. Old being, they've been playing forever, not the actual age. Because, again, this guy's like 29. And then, like, a lot of younger, newer players. Pee-Pee, for example, which everybody loses their shit because they think it's funny that his name is Urine. He's fairly young. And, let's see, he started on Azules. Went on to LATAM, Infinity, and now he's on Ravens. Like, a lot of people really like this player. They really think he's got a lot of potential. I would say he's in the tier of Alone. Because I think Alone's very good, but he's young. He needs more experience. I think Pee-Pee is also very talented, but he needs experience. He absolutely needs more time to grow. But this is a good team to start on, right? Because you've got Benjaz, who's going to be able to help him, kind of learn a lot. You've got Kara and Dismar, two support players that I'm a big fan of. Again, these guys I believe are also quite young. Let me double check. Yeah, Dismar has been playing since 2018. And then Kara was also 2018. I believe these two played together a couple times too. And again, like, young being relative, right? Because you've got Benhaz who's been doing this since 2013. But these two guys, they haven't found a lot of attention. Like, they've kind of been floating around in the scene for quite a while, but haven't had people say, like, oh, man, look at these guys. They're solid support. And again, unfortunately, there's not too much you can do as a support to be super flashy unless you're an escape artist like Schofield, or sometimes, ends up feeding anyways. Or if you're super, super aggressive as a position 4. But they're solid to build a team around. And I think that's very important, that you have that core, that heart of your team that's going to be able to, set the groundwork and allow Pee-Pee and Benhaz to do what they need to do. But I will also say I don't know a lot about Dad. He played for KBU US. Yeah, this player, I believe KBU was the Div 2 NA squad. I did not watch, like, hardly any Div 2 NA. There's just so much other stuff to watch. So yeah, not sure about how he's going to perform. I would assume that this is going to be one of those players that he's got to be pretty good if Benjaz has moved over to the offlane, honestly. Because I know that Benjaz typically wants to be, or typically has been, the position one. So if Benjaz is willing to step over into the offlane, then Dad's got to have some pretty significant skills here. So this squad for me is the big question mark. I feel like you've got, like, PP is the big one for me to watch on this team particularly. And I think he needs to really be, what's the word? Assisted or unlocked by this the support squad. But you think Ravens are low skill players? I don't know about that. I think that there's potential here. I would not put them at the top though. If I had to do a ranking on this, I would say Evil Geniuses at the tip top. Like, they're definitely looking to be the strongest team out there because of, like, look at this all-star cast again. Don't mean to keep clicking that. Two of the best players in South America right there. This guy, obviously, you know, very, very good player. Definitely has more to be unlocked, I think, potential-wise, if he has the right squad around him. And Panda and Matthew are just awesome. Dad has some mistakes. I mean, again, that comes down to an experience. So I'd say Evil Geniuses first, followed by Beast Coast, because Beast Coast is the scrappy leftovers. I hate to say it. It sounds kind of, like, shitty. I would say Infinity would be my next, because of the fact that they do have, they've got Parker. I feel like that's very promising. But I also feel like ALLIANCE.LATAM and Infinity, like, these guys, very close, depending on the day, depending on the patch. Yeah, Infinity does look good. I don't know if they're going to bubble up to top two. I'm not sure if Infinity can take down Beast Coast. Beast Coast looked very clean yesterday, and they looked like a fresh squad. Again, a lot of it just in the way that they're playing together as opposed to how they used to. But definitely top. The third spot is, what do you call it? It's going to be a battle for third, for sure, between Alliance and Infinity. Thunder, this one's a little bit of a question mark for me, just because I don't know how Smiling Knight's going to perform with the squad. I don't know. I know that they speak a little bit of English, but I'm not sure how much, and I think language will also end up being possibly an issue, depending on, like, because let's face it, like, even if you are bilingual, you're always going to feel more comfortable in your own language, your home language. So I'm not sure about that. Alone, very good player, but again, very young. This is a squad that I think needs experience. It's going to need some growth. Same thing goes with Ravens. Ravens needs growth. Ravens has the potential, but I'm not sure they're quite there yet. Infamous, mid of the pack, if I'm going to be honest. I feel like I should be writing this down. Do I have a notepad? Notepad. All right, let's do our rankings here. Let me do full screen. Do I have just full screen? I could do window capture. Notepad. Ah, perfect. This automatically opens to Notepad. All right, let's move this bad boy over here. Okay, so in the top spot, I would say is Evil Geniuses. I need to do I before E, except after, well, not I before E, but Evil Geniuses definitely looking to be the strongest. My ranking number 2, Beast Coast. Beast Coast has a leftover mishmash of Beast Coast and Thunder, and they're playing very cohesive. Big fan of that. Rank number 3 could be a toss-up. I think it could be either Infinity or it could be ALLIANCE.LATAM. I think both of these teams have the potential. It just depends on the day, depends on the patch, for sure. Get into 5th position. I think I would say Infamous. I feel like Infamous has that that little bit of an edge Just because of the fact that they have like MNZ and MJZ, like those two guys alone are very, very strong. You've got Oscar too and Sladine. Slatam, not super familiar with, but I think that's looking like a very powerful stack. Who do we have left here? 6th position. I kind of want to say... So who do we have left? We've got Infamous, we've got Vivo, and Ravens. I want to say Thunder, probably. I think Ravens and Vivo will be eliminated. Yeah. I would put... This is really like... Oh, I did 7 out of 7, 7, 8. Honestly, the bottom... This one's hard. And this is also very hard for me to say that... Yeah, that's my thing, Math. That is my issue here, is the fact that Thunder Awaken, like, I don't think they'll be eliminated. I think they also, though, like... I think they need, like, more experience. Like, a lot of this comes down to needing more experience, right? Ravens need more experience for sure. The new Thunder, it really depends. Like, that one's a big question mark to me. I want to say that they're going to do well, but I don't know Smiling Knight. And again, like, their team, they've got some young players. Vivo Keystars, this really fucking hurts to say because I'm a huge Brazilian Dota fan and they are the only Brazilian team. But, like, they don't look like they have cohesion. That's my issue. They don't look like they have cohesion together yet. And again, this could change, and I hope it changes. But right now, like, I'm watching their games and the way that they're moving, like, they have a general idea, but it's not... They don't have a backup plan. Like, it's all the eggs in one basket, it feels like. And again, it's a little unfair to say that because I played against Beast Coast, who's my ranked number 2. They could get better. They could warm up. They could, you know... I definitely believe they can take games off of Thunder and off of Infamous. But I'm concerned that, like, the top 4, they're not going to be able to do enough. Might be able to take it to a game 3. I don't know. I always feel really bad making rankings because I feel like I'm being a shithead and, like, shitting on teams. I don't want to do that, obviously. But yeah, that's kind of where I am at. Top 2, pretty much the same as usual. Well, it's the same as usual, but Evil Geniuses has just entered the scene, so everyone pretty much thinking that Evil Geniuses is going to be the best. Beast Coast right behind them. Infinity and ALLIANCE.LATAM, about around the same skill level. Infamous, Thunder Awaken, pretty solid middle pack. I feel like Infamous is very solid middle. Thunder Awaken, it could go either way with Ravens or Vivo, honestly. So we'll see. I would love to see Vivo do well. Ravens, again, just need more experience. Thunder Awaken, a little bit more experience. You've got a wild card in there with Smiling Knight. So again, not trying to shit on anyone for sure. What's the most hype matchup that you guys want to see? This is Math says EG versus Infinity is going to be like a super hype one. Infinity versus Thunder? Okay. Yeah, I'm very interested in the new Thunder Awaken. I'm going to definitely check out some of their games when I can. But yeah, so that's kind of it for my stream here. We ended up running for about an hour talking about all of the different South American Div 1 teams. I'm going to turn this into a video. It's probably not going to be edited because I don't know how to video edit, so it'll probably be terrible. Sorry, guys. But yeah, just kind of some information on these guys, who I think is going to do well, who I think is, you know, going to need more time to come online, who to watch, which players are good, which players, you know, have the potential. I hope this helped you guys a little bit. I hope you found it interesting. Definitely have a lot more insights to share, but don't want to, you know, make this too long. And yeah. that's gonna be it then. So I will be covering some of the SA games on my channel. It is a community broadcast, so it'll be 15 minutes behind. I've talked to Neff, I've talked to Purge, trying to see if Jenkins is interested at all. And yeah, it should be a good time. I will try to post up updates whenever we are going to be covering. This week is a bit hard. I do have a funeral that I have to attend, and some other family things, so not going to be able to do the Sunday game, but we'll be streaming tomorrow, and that is an Evil Geniuses game, so you definitely want to be watching and check that out. But that's it for now. Thank you guys for your support, and I will see you tomorrow.